Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is President Martin Millibar. I would like to call the meeting of the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority Board meeting for May 21st at 1:30 p.m. Could you call the roll, Ms. Rodriguez?
Gladly. Good afternoon, board members, starting with President Millibar.
Here.
Director Estamera?
Aye.
Director Martin?
Here.
Director Luna? And Director Chang is not able to join us today, but we do have alternate director Michael Plinsky.
Present.
Thank you. Director Anaptawi?
Here.
Director Weed? Here. Right, we have a quorum.
Okay, we're going to go into closed session and discuss two items. 3A, conference with legal counsel, code section 54956.9D2, and conference with labor negotiators, section 54957.6. So we'll go into closed session, and we anticipate being back in open session at approximately 2 p.m.
And President Millibar, we should just confirm there isn't public comment. I don't believe we received any requests.
I can confirm
Okay.
we have not.
Thank you.
Can we go into closed session then?
President Millibar, please meet us in closed session. And Director Estamera.
I didn't catch that.
Meet us in closed session.
We are in closed session, okay.
Yes, sir. Please meet us there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, confirming that we do have Director Estamera on, and before we proceed, I do want to acknowledge that Director Luna has now joined us.
I am present.
Thank you. Also here in the room, we have alternate Director Ballard. We have alternate Director McMillan, and online I see alternate Director Lamoureux. I believe that's all of the alternate directors that we have in attendance today.
So we can proceed?
We can proceed.
Okay, we're out of closed session. Josh, any report out of closed session?
No reportable action, President Millibar. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
Okay, we got that done. We're on item 5. We're now on 5, public comment on items not on the agenda. If you wish to make a public comment, we request that you submit a request through QR code noted on the agenda. In addition, attendees may provide public comment during the meeting by submitting a comment card or using the raised hand function on the Zoom platform. Those on phone can press *9 to raise their hand. That's right. Ms. Rodriguez, do we have any public comments on item 5 at this time?
President Millibar, I can confirm that we have not received public comment requests online or here in the room.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6A. We have 2 sets of minutes, one of April 17th, 2025. Do we want to approve these separately? If so, I need a motion to approve the minutes of April 17th, 2025.
Motion.
Have a second?
I'll call the roll call, starting with President Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Estromera,
Aye.
Alternate Director Plinsky,
Aye.
Director Anaptawi,
Yes.
and Director Weed.
Yeah, you see that's going on right now? Can you see my screen?
President Millibar meeting minutes have been approved and confirming that this is for both 6A and 6B.
Yeah, I believe that,
No.
yeah, the motion
Oh.
was just for the first, yeah.
So approval of 6A proceeding with 6B.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, President Millibar,
President Millibar, you are muted right now.
Mr. Reeves, we can move on to the next person in the roll call, maybe circle back to President Millibar.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Estromera,
Aye.
Alternate Director Plinsky,
Yes.
Director Anaptawi,
Yes.
Director Weed, President Millibar. Josh, defer to you for direction.
If we have quorum and we have the votes. Move on.
Yeah, well, we do want to make sure we have audio with that remote meeting location.
Pause for.
Yeah, can we pause? Yeah, so I apologize, board. Can we take a short recess while we just troubleshoot this and then we'll reconvene as soon as possible? Thank you.
Oh, because it's already on the table, we can't just move on to another subject and come back.
We can, but the issue is because it's a
They're not-
meeting
we
location,
don't-
we want to make sure it's publicly accessible.
Stephanie, if you're in the room with President Millibar, can you attempt to unmute the,
Can you hear me, Claudia?
There we go.
hey, President Millibar? If you could mute the room and leave the phone unmuted? Checking to see if you could hear us now, President Millibar?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Yes.
And
Wonderful.
President Millibar, where we're currently, just in case you were having some issues on the audio, is we're currently on item 6B. Ms. Rodriguez has called the roll. The vote so far is 6 in favor, none against, and it's your vote.
Okay, so we're done with the minutes and we can move on to item 7A, discussion.
President Millibar, I apologize for interrupting. Just to close out 6B, we just need your vote in aye or nay on the approval of the minutes.
Okay, aye.
Thank you.
Confirming
Now
that
we can
both sets of meeting minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 7A, the monthly report, Graham Bradner will present it.
President Millibar, thank you very much. Also, I do have a quick request, President Millibar, just to reorder discussion items 7B and C. In light of the fact that I would like to cover 7C next after the monthly report. I think it feeds better that way, and then allow the sustainability team to provide that update there is, I think, some good logic in explaining the next 3-year work plan first, and then letting the sustainability team update the work that they've been doing and build on some of that work plan information. So if it's okay with you, I would like to just flip 7B and 7C in the order that we cover those items.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the monthly report, the board is familiar. There's a lot of detail in this report. I'm just going to cover the information included on the executive summary. And if there's any more detailed questions, I'm happy to dig into that detail. So first, starting with the focus areas for the DCA, our continued engineering and environmental support for DWR and their permitting efforts. Currently, change in point of diversion hearings at the State Water Resources Control Board are the activity. We've got the engineering studies that we continue to advance regarding project design, consideration of potential innovations that could improve the constructability, reduce the costs, help manage risk on the project. We've now set the long-range goal of updating the cost estimate and a system-wide basis of design report planned for early 27. And I'm actually going to talk a bit more about that as part of the next item, the 3-year work plan. So you should have more context here in the next item in terms of understanding what that means and entails. Lastly, we've been doing a lot of internal work to develop the management plans, procedures, workflows, really thinking about that transition to project delivery pending the PWA decisions to implement the project. We want to make sure that the DCA organization is ready to efficiently transition into that phase of the program without really missing a beat, or without really missing without missing any time if we can avoid it. So we've got a lot of work to do. We started this year, earlier this year, with the reorganization, which is generally complete. We're now continuing to evaluate the resources that we have within the program, where we need to augment. So now that's a big focus for us, but also looking at all the systems that we've been using over the past 5 or 6 years, recognizing that many of them need to evolve for that delivery phase, and really starting to prioritize and plan out the sequence of those activities. So that's really another big priority for the organization. In terms of our financial budget and performance, we have the currently approved budget for this fiscal year, $43 million. We have total committed through contracts and task orders, $35 million. To date, $22 million incurred. So this is through April of this year. So we tend to be a little bit delayed in terms of reporting, just because it's as the invoices are coming in, we're tracking this information. In terms of our financial performance, we have updated our estimate for the completion of the year to $33.1 million. So we're now showing an underrun of about $10 million on the overall budget. So that would forecast a 23% underrun for the total approved budget. Now, a big item there is we had a geotech investigation set aside in that fiscal year budget of $43 million, which we really did not tap into over the past year. So and you'll see as we bring the budget forward at the committee meeting this afternoon, we've similarly including some set asides and reserves in the event that we are able to get out and do the geotech work that we'd like to be doing. So we'll see a similar pattern in the upcoming fiscal year budget. In terms of work progress versus percent complete versus percent spent, we're very much on track in terms of percent complete and spent. I think it's notable at this point, though, to recognize this is work through April. There's only the months of May and June remaining in the year. And so you can imagine this becomes a very busy part of the fiscal year. A lot of that percent complete is based on completion of deliverable work products. And so these are items that document the work that's been done through the fiscal year. So you're going to see this number start to dramatically change from 65 to 100% as we work our way through the last couple of months here. So it tends to be kind of a big wave of effort to true up, submit, clean up, document all the work that's been done, get that work reviewed, QA/QC'd, accepted by the DCA to allow those items to transition to 100%. So although we are very much aligned in terms of percent spent and percent complete, we've got unfortunately, it's been our typical pattern. We have kind of a big push at the end of the fiscal year to get everything cleaned up and wrapped up for each of the task orders. So this is sort of a busy time each year, and so we're in the middle of it right now. In terms of our small business participation, 12% of the committed contracts are designated small business DVBE, 9% of the invoice to date. Similarly, SBE, DVBE participation. In terms of our existing procurements, we are in the process. We've sent out notice of intent to award contracts for all the vendors that were selected for the executive strategic support services contract. So that was a suite of requests that were made for 4 different categories. We have executive, really strategic support and advice. We have deputy director services. So it's time to bring on a deputy executive director. We have facilitation services and then also human resources support. I'm happy to say we got very good submittals on all 4 categories, and we'll be happy to bring back a more detailed update to the board. It is our plan to begin negotiations on those contracts and bring back some of the priority awards as needed to, where we need board approval to award. So 250,000 or more contract values. Our intention is to bring the first wave of those back to the board in June. And then likely bring the remainder back to the board in August. So you'll be getting a lot more detail on that come the June board meeting. We've got some other items, smaller procurements, business services, our scheduling software, all of that's moving ahead. In terms of outreach activities, the DCA did participate at the Southern California Water Coalition Luncheon. That was also Carla Nemeth, Director of the Department of Water Resources, presented at that luncheon. So that was great to have the DCA present there. We've had a lot of social media engagement. We're noting just over 11% increase in activity since March. So we're picking back up a little bit. We had kind of a blip with some of the social media that we were engaging with, but we've got things picked back up again. So that completes my summary for the monthly report, but would be happy to answer any questions or dig into any details if anybody would like.
Are there any questions from the board or from the audience?
President
Right.
Millibar, I'd like to ask a question, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
Graham, certainly is commendable to see that the percent complete is exceeding the percent spent, but I'm curious, how are we determining percent complete? Is it based on deliverables from the various entities that you're part of your team, or could you maybe just a few words about that?
Sure. It is based on deliverables at this point. We're going to continue evolving this actually to a more representative approach as we start the new fiscal year. Where we're headed is a more equal representation of deliverables, which are work products. They're contractually obligated work products with a cost associated with them. They're very easy to track. That's information that we receive from our vendors on a monthly basis. What's not represented well, I think, in this is a properly weighted depiction of contracts that have lots of effort associated with them, but without specific deliverables that are work products associated with that effort. We have a lot of folks working on the program, not a lot of folks working in staff level positions that really don't have deliverable outputs as representations of their work completion. But it is part of the process. It is part of the work that we're accomplishing, and we need to better kind of merge that into this report so you've got a more weighted presentation of percent complete. Right now, this is very heavily skewed towards deliverables. So it's moving in the right direction. This is better than, by my view, better than what we had in the previous iteration of the monthly report, which was really more of a subjective view of progress that we kind of had to work with our vendors and land on a reasonable representation. We're trying to get more quantitative, and so we're working through the systems now to have and to continue to improve those systems and have a more repeatable process. I'll have, again, a number of updates there for the board as we start to pivot that approach, probably starting July 1.
Very good. Thanks, Graham.
Sure.
Any other questions of Graham on his report? No questions? Any public comments on this, Ms. Rodriguez?
President Millibar, we have not received any request either online or here in the room for this item.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 7C, 3-year work plan overview.
Great, thank you. Thank you, President Millibar. I appreciate the flexibility here. So I'll give Claudia a second to. So I have, I wanted to just walk through the 3-year work plan. We're gonna start with a schedule that I think many are familiar with seeing. This is the schedule that we released with the updated cost estimate back in May of last year, May of 2024. This is a high-level depiction of the schedule. A couple of notable points on this schedule. We've got completion of major permit activities by the end of 2026. We've got the design activities, pre-design, and then full-blown design, procuring for and completion of final designs really kicking off heavily in 26 and beyond. I think another sort of key takeaway with this schedule is the start of early works construction activities in mid-2029. What's not shown on here really is the key decision point from the participating public water agencies to implement the project. And that's an important, incredibly important step that follows completion of the major permits and prior to the start of land acquisition. So there's a lot within this schedule that's not clear. It's intentionally an overall summary, kind of a one-page depiction of the schedule. This matches the cost estimate that was released back in May. This matches the benefit cost analysis that was released back in May. So what we're working on now is what it really takes to hold this schedule. And that's what I would like to go to here with the next slide. So focusing in on the next 3 years. So we've got, reflecting and thinking about that other schedule, we had the completion of major permit activities by the end of 2026. So at the upper section, the green area, you see environmental support. These are really focused on DCA activities, although we do have a couple of milestones flagged here that are not within the control of the DCA. So major permit activities logged across the top with the last major permits of the change in point of diversion and delta plane consistency by the end of 2026. So the work to support that process at the DCA, we've got the continued engineering and environmental work where we continue to very closely work with the permitting team, answering questions, responding to needs and clarifications on the engineering work. We're also starting to focus on really internalizing, understanding the environmental commitments and permit requirements, ensuring that we've got them built into the schedule. That's going to be an ongoing process as the permits come in, the requirements land, if they're refined, making sure that we're keeping up with those refinements, but really being very clear about how these permit requirements potentially overlap, relate, conflict, and ensuring that we're able to clearly communicate that back to the permitting team here in the near future. So that's a big part of it, establishing how the DCA and DWR will work together through the environmental compliance process. That's also a big effort for us here in the near future. So really drilling in and thinking about the environmental compliance requirements, how exactly we will ensure implementation of those requirements. In the case of near-term work, field work, we may have the need to actually stand up and start performing that environmental compliance and monitoring that's required by the permits. And so we also need to be in compliance during those early activities, and we need to make sure that we're ready to provide that information, monitor, report in accordance with the permits. The next big item, I mentioned the desire to develop a basis of design report. This is a system-wide engineering update for the entire project. So we have the concept engineering report that was finalized last fall, focuses on the selected project, the Bethany Reservoir alternative. The overall average design level of that project would be about 10% level of design. That's what was prepared to support the CEQA analysis, the environmental permitting. So we're going to be spending the next year performing a significant amount of additional engineering to update and upgrade that design to something more akin to a 20% design. So we're going to move the entire project design from 10 to 20%. That's to support an updated cost estimate. That cost estimate work will start next spring, carry through the summer and fall, again, feeding more substantial economic analysis. That cost estimate will be targeted as a Class 3 estimate. So we're moving from a Class 4 to a Class 3. That tightens up the ranges of accuracy, that tightens up the uncertainty associated with that estimate. There's a substantial amount of information that's necessary to support a Class 3 estimate. And that's really a key focus for us over the coming year. Moving into the program delivery, planning, preparation, there's quite a bit of work here that you can see. Our first step, which I'm happy to say we're largely completed, is updating the organization for delivery phase. But we've got the program management plans. We've got a number of of other activities in terms of establishing the initial project packaging for the various contracts that we foresee in the delivery phase, establishing the design and construction packaging and documents. So those would be the procurement documents that are associated with bringing those teams on board, establishing the design guidelines and standards, how we're going to approach topics of design automation. We've got the continued engineering evaluation of potential innovations to refine the project that will continue in parallel. Power coordination with SMUD, PG&E, WAPA that has been going and will continue. Temporary entry permits, right-of-way engineering, all of that continues on. Then lastly, we have the joint exercise of powers agreement with DWR. Currently does not have the implementation language within it. That needs to be renegotiated, reintroduced in time for the program to transition to that delivery phase. So that's all within the program delivery planning. Lastly, last year we did stand up and initiate the program delivery phase for some of the very early geotech and other data collection activities. This is because that fieldwork is now focused on the selected project, and it will be, from a funding perspective, be tracked as part of program delivery, although it's very much pre-delivery at this point. We don't want to kind of muddy the waters and muddy the accounts by having that investigative work still attached to the permitting and planning phases. Although it is helping us refine and consider conservative assumptions, it's very much part of the program delivery. It's ultimately part of what's necessary to fully design and construct the project. So we've established the program delivery phase now, although it's dedicated only to those early geotech surveys, pre-construction studies. But you can see beginning in early 27, that's where we would like to be starting to initiate, bring on final designers for some of those early project features to allow for start of construction in mid-29. We've got a tremendous amount of community outreach that we need to stand up associated with that delivery phase. So this would be reestablishing the community advisory groups that would be involved through the final design of various project facilities. Then we've really got that property acquisition phase that is on the critical path and needs to be preceded by the participating public water agencies' decisions to approve and proceed with the project. So this provides a lot more detail of our plans over the next 3 years. And then I superimpose next fiscal year, 25, 26 on top of this work plan. I think you get a better defined scope for the next year. I think this provides a little more context for what we're doing over the next fiscal year and why we're doing it. And my intent in bringing it to the board today was to allow us to reflect back on this as we start talking about our priorities for budget. Other items, this in my mind really kind of sets the stage for those conversations. So I'll stop here, President Millibar, and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Miguel. President?
Go ahead.
Thank you. One thing, and you could say it doesn't fit here, but the community benefits program, I think I see it separate from community outreach for delivery. And I think it's worthwhile to call out that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree with that, Director Luna. And so, yeah, I appreciate the comment. And I think as we continue to sort of broaden what we're reflecting and how we sequence in those activities, absolutely. I think we have to prioritize that and be sure that it's depicted at the right time and place. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any
One more. Community outreach. I encourage everyone to look at a website.
I would encourage everyone in the room to look at a website by the State Water Resources Control Board on Safer Water, SAFER. That's an acronym which I won't attempt to decipher. But in 2019, the state of California had a law to identify and fund helping economically disadvantaged communities with 10 or more customers. They had a funding mechanism of over 10 years of about $1.3 billion, but that won't be enough. Money's coming in. I represent the Alameda County Water District, which has through this program, a funded program to assist a community services district in the San Joaquin Valley. 6 districts have been paired under CUA, California Urban Water Association, to do that. But this is a broad project. And in 2024, thousands of of these locations were identified. They're on the website. It is to not only the benefit, as we look at community benefit, which is traditionally has been only environmental. Hopefully it can be expanded to helping the economically disadvantaged communities, particularly in the waterway area. And so, again, it's an area of undefined interest, but one that hopefully we can incorporate in our planning. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board or the audience?
President Millibar, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Graham, this is pretty exciting to actually see line items for things like final design of the project. But I have to ask, is this schedule predicated to any extent, or is it dependent on any of the components that are in the governor's trailer bill that we saw announced last week?
And then it disappeared. I don't know if you have anything.
So I guess that's a,
Postponed because Eugenia and I haven't been able to meet on.
hey, Marcy, you want, yeah, there you go. So not directly, Director Martin, but I could see there are obvious connections, and depending on how things play out over the next couple of years, some of these items could be tremendously helpful to the program. This schedule is not predicated on those actions, but they do ultimately require resolution. So, you know, you could foresee in various scenarios, the public water agencies deciding their participation, you know, having the provisions that have been proposed and considered could make a significant impact on how those conversations and decisions ultimately play out. So there are relations for sure, but this schedule is not dependent on
Okay. I didn't want to put you on the spot, Graham, but I was very curious. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions of Graham on item 7C, the 3-year work plan overview? Are there any public comments on this item?
President Millibar, confirming we have no public comment requests for this item here in the room or online.
Okay, thank you very much. Graham, do you want to move on to item 7B, the sustainability program update?
Yes, please. And I'll introduce, we've got Kat Shane, our sustainability manager for the program online, and in person, we have Julia Adelman, who's part of the sustainability team. And I believe they'll both be presenting on this next item, starting with Kat. But welcome, Julia and Kat.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Sounds great.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks, Graham. As Graham mentioned, my name is Kat Shane, or Catherine is my full name if you prefer to address me the way my parents do. I'm joined by Julia in the room with you today, and we also have Cindy Davis on the line, who's an important contributor and available to help us with the Q&A if needed at the end. So the last time the sustainability team had the opportunity to present to the board, it was when the DCA sustainability policy was adopted approximately 2 years ago. So we're happy to be back. Key aspects of the policy commitment include balancing sustainability with other program goals, as well as embedding sustainability practices into the program from both the organizational and the project implementation perspectives. So today we're going to go into a bit more detail discussing how this commitment has been carried out over the past 2 years and a bit of a look ahead to the coming fiscal year. Next slide, please. Across the top of this slide, you'll see the process-oriented goals which are contained within the sustainability policy. They highlight the key ways in which sustainability activities will be established, coordinated, and communicated as the program evolves. The bottom row represents performance-oriented goals, which are related to sustainability actions. And those actions are ones for which the program can set targets and measure performance, sometimes quantitative, say in the case of energy and water consumption goals, and sometimes qualitatively, for example, in how social context or health and safety are prioritized. And then ultimately, these performance-oriented goals are ones for which we want to be able to track and report on progress. So Julia will touch a bit more on the performance goals a little bit later in our talk today. Next slide. What you see here is a cascading structure for establishing sustainability goals and carrying them out through project delivery. And it may look familiar to you because this diagram is also part of the sustainability policy. The way I like to explain this diagram is that it shows the three foundational documents that will guide and drive sustainability integration into the program, starting with the high-level goals that are defined in the policy, and then developing requirements and processes to a greater level of detail, beginning with the programmatic sustainability plan, which is overseen at the DCA level, followed by the project sustainability plans, which are developed and carried out by the design and construction project teams post-procurement. So the arrow in the center of the slide, or slightly left of center, indicates where we are today, on the cusp of developing that programmatic sustainability plan based on a series of detailed benchmarking and target setting activities that we've been focused on for the past 2 fiscal years. All of this will set the stage for the project teams to pick up the torch, carry the actions forward, and measure and report on progress. Next slide, please. So for the past 2 fiscal years, we've summarized our activities into 3 major categories: leadership, commitment, and engagement, processes and frameworks, and technical approach, all of which have progressed parallel to and coordinated with related activities such as the permitting process, community benefits plan, and communications activities. So in fiscal year 23-24, in the leadership bucket, following the policy adoption, we began to provide monthly sustainability updates. And this was put into place to be able to report out on our processes and frameworks exploration. That exploration included an examination of sustainability goals and performance from peer projects and programs. We also looked at context from PWA policies and expectations with respect to sustainability, and just in general gained a better understanding of the organizational and project-related sustainability frameworks that are available in the marketplace and would be applicable to the scope and size of this program. Our technical approach began to take shape in the form of our first Envision rating system assessment and the production of a strategy memo that outlined the key steps in the subsequent fiscal year. So we had a lot of activity in fiscal year 24-25. The Sustainability Working Group was established in a more formal way. We continued to meet monthly, but we also had a series of additional workshops, which allowed us to come to consensus on a variety of things, including, but not limited to, just a few examples: the shared values and benefits of sustainability, opportunities and obstacles that we want to be aware of as we move forward, what we see as the key components of the program's sustainability culture and our collaborative approach, and also our shared vision for success from the perspective of sustainability and how we want to communicate that to our key audiences. In the processes and frameworks, we continued by mapping environmental commitments to sustainability measures in the Envision framework. We also held interactive workshops to establish appropriate baselines or frames of reference for measuring performance, and where possible, we set some targets. All of this then dovetailed into discussions regarding what the appropriate way would be to track performance and what tools could be used for that purpose. The how, or the technical approach, continued to evolve, all of which is documented in a sustainability strategy memo update, which we're working on as we speak in the flurry of end of fiscal year activities that Graham referenced, and a more robust version of the Envision assessment report that we initiated in 2023-24. Those 2 documents have led us to a better understanding of the resources we need and the content that we'll be putting into the programmatic sustainability plan. So I'll pass it on to Julia to talk a bit about the environmental commitment sustainability mapping process.
Thanks, Kat. So as Kat just mentioned, a big part of our work the last couple of years has been this mapping and benchmarking. So I wanted to take a look at the environmental sustainability mapping. This chart overlays just a sample of approved design and environmental commitments from the project with the sustainability program goals shown in green here. I also want to note that we had 4 sustainability goals to show progress, and we've taken specific strategies out of those and put them into their own columns here to show more level of detail. In terms of the blue columns for resilience, while not included in the initial sustainability policy, we found as we were doing this mapping exercise that it already committed to environmental and design commitments did cover climate and resilience. So we wanted to include those here to show a more full picture. So just to walk through one example, I'd like to go 5 rows down to, thank you. Design for a 100-year operational life, something that maybe doesn't scream sustainability off the bat. However, it does conserve natural resources because by designing and building for a longer lifespan, that means that those materials get used to their full extent possible, and it reduces the need to extract new virgin materials. Similarly, the materials would not be thrown away or need to be replaced sooner than they need to, which reduces and minimizes waste. This 100-year operational lifespan also supports resilience in the face of our changing climate, as well as supporting and avoiding greenhouse gas emissions associated with material and resource extraction and waste management. So beyond just the environmental commitments, we also wanted to benchmark sustainability across the program timeline. So here we have some examples that demonstrate activities across the major project phases that have enhanced sustainability. A key tenet of sustainability is not just doing the project right, but doing the right project. And a couple main activities within the planning process support that, including the fact that the Bethany Reservoir alignment was chosen as the least impactful alternative through CEQA, as well as the establishment of the Stakeholder Engagement Committee, which made a really bold effort to understand what that right project looks like to our diverse stakeholders. Preliminary engineering has set the stage for material conservation and climate resilience, of course, with room to innovate and refine as we get into more detailed design development, including material selection that considers embodied carbon emissions. And finally, there are many construction-related environmental commitments from the planning phase. And as procurement documents are being prepared, considering innovative technologies as well as planning for the reuse of materials and infrastructure can further enhance sustainability during the construction phase. But just how sustainable is the project, and where are those kind of no-brainer opportunities where we can maximize sustainability and continue to meet the overall program goals? Well, we've begun to answer some of these questions by benchmarking the DCP against the Envision framework. So Envision is a tool that was developed by the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure that evaluates sustainability across environmental, social, and economic aspects. It also uses a standard set of strategies and thresholds. This framework emphasizes a collaborative approach that spans disciplines, stakeholders, as well as project phases. Unlike LEAD for buildings, Envision focuses on the unique challenges and opportunities that infrastructure faces, including water conveyance infrastructure. So a third-party verification review is available from ISI to confirm the self-assessed award level. However, this is an open source framework and can be just used as a benchmarking tool, which is how we've been using it thus far on the program. So through essentially everything Kat mentioned earlier, through workshops, conversations, detailed document review, we have identified how the project currently performs as is within the 5 categories of Envision, and that's shown in blue. So this is without any additional sustainability commitments. We've also identified some opportunities for DCA shown in green, including both kind of lower hanging fruit conservative in the lighter green bar, as well as more stringent processes or targets in the darker green. We also discovered that because the project is in such an early phase, we just don't know some information at this time. Additionally, some aspects of what Envision asks for are outside of DCA's control and require further coordination. So that group is included in our purple future knowledge needed bucket, and anything else that Envision asks for that we deemed not feasible given what we know about the program is shown in black. So the results show that as is, without any additional sustainability commitments, the DCP would earn the verified award level because we've achieved over 20% of the total possible points for Envision. However, given the number of opportunities we have identified, as well as the sustainability team's past experience with this framework, we're confident that silver is an achievable target. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kat, and she can walk us through what this means moving forward.
Great, thanks, Julia. So to round out our portion of the program, so to speak, on the next slide, we're summarizing actions at risk of repeating myself from the current updated strategy memo, as well as a detailed and robust Envision assessment report update. Shows all of the detailed analyses and conclusions and recommendations that are represented in the very high-level summary Julia just presented. So looking ahead to the next fiscal year, we are prioritizing efforts that support the transition to delivery as part of the 3-year plan that Graham was discussing earlier. And our focus is in that transition is to refine the way sustainability will be integrated into the program prior to issuing that first procurement package. And one of the key decisions is whether or not a full-fledged Envision verification will be pursued, or if the program will continue to use Envision as a self-assessment and benchmarking tool as we have been thus far. Regardless of whether the third-party verification or the self-benchmarking approach is used, we encourage setting a target award level. That's the verified silver, gold, or platinum designations you saw on the previous slide, because doing so really helps the team to discover and achieve innovative sustainability wins as the program evolves. So as for the activities we'll be working on, shown on the right-hand side of the slide, in the leadership and commitments and engagement category, we'll be focused on reviewing and updating the sustainability policy goals, defining more specific objectives where appropriate, continuing engagement activities with our key stakeholders, and collaborating in an ongoing fashion with the other programmatic staff. Under processes and frameworks, we'll focus on any remaining technical assessments needed to finalize performance benchmarks, associated metrics, targets, and tracking mechanisms. And that's also always collaborating with the engineering staff and environmental team. And then finally, in the technical approach, we'll include developing the first full draft of the programmatic sustainability plan as that roadmap for executing the policy goals and the bridge to the project-specific sustainability plans per that 3-tier diagram we looked at earlier in the presentation. So as I mentioned, key related activities include coordinating with the environmental and engineering teams. We want to reach consensus on how best to integrate sustainability into those design guidelines and standards and the contract packages as part of procurement. All of the above, as we're doing all of the above, we're keeping the bigger picture in mind. we're in service of the overall program goal to complete all major permits and receive approval for project delivery from the PWAs. So this concludes our update on sustainability. Thanks for your attention, and we welcome any questions.
Are there any questions from the board on this program, sustainability?
I mentioned earlier that the term public benefit has been historically environmental only. But under the LEED presentation you just gave us, economic development and health and safety are issues that could be put under the LEED. So I encourage you in your analysis and review to identify projects or which may on the safer list that may apply and that we could participate in. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Malabar, if I may.
Yes, and if I may say that I just have a brief response to say that the Envision rating system, the framework, has a lot of attributes to it that are not solely focused on the environmental, and we've included in our document review and the consideration of the scoring to date, that triple bottom line, if you will, of sustainability, the economic, social, and environmental, all three together.
Is this the Envision program from like almost 15 years ago that Harvard was involved with? And this is it, huh?
This is it.
Yeah.
It is. Yep. It originated as a partnership with the Zofnass Institute at Harvard University and is now run as a not-for-profit organization, independent. Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The city of LA participated in the conceptual, served as a study as it developed its point system. So it's really interesting to see it, where it is today. I have a couple of questions. One is related to slide 5, as it relates to the technical approach. There was the third bullet from exploration of funding opportunities to resources needed in planning outline. I'm wondering how, what are you envisioning as part of that process to get to that, or where are we in that? Because I think the part on resources needed is going to be an interesting one. So, and I'm going to ask all my questions, and you may say, answer them all together. The other is the design for the 100-year operational plan, and whether that 100-year meets within where we are with the life of the project, or would you consider beyond that, given that when you're talking about, how you use construction material throughout or different operational technical machines throughout for the life of it. And then how do you consider as part of that, you talk about innovative technology, and I kind of compartmentalize it in advanced technology, new or innovative, and even unknown technology as it relates to sustainability, given that in 100 years, the car, the mobile phone has evolved so exponentially in, 10, 15 years. So lots of questions, but just interested in hearing your thought process on that. And AI, where does AI fit in all of that? Catherine and Julie.
Oh yeah, so the second question is a very big topic that I don't know that we can address fully in the time we have today. I'll start with the funding question. Our activities in the area of green funding discussions, mostly what that revolved around was establishing relationships with DWR, BBK, LP, and MWD on matters related to green funding, just to see if there were any opportunities that could leverage the sustainability activities to give innovative ways of financing. It's very much we're just scratching the surface there, and we still have to see where that goes. As far as the 100-year operational life, with a lot of these large scale civil infrastructure programs, we can't even imagine exactly how technology will evolve over the course of that life. What we're looking at from the sustainability perspective is the improvements or reductions to greenhouse gas emissions over the life of a project through improved maintainability or longer, more durable materials. The technology side, admittedly, is not necessarily something that's addressed directly in the Envision program, except to say that an operations and maintenance plan would need to be put into place that has some sort of review, plan, do, check, act style cycle, so that as the world changes, those practices can be reevaluated over time.
How about AI?
Could you be more specific about?
Yeah, what do you see? So that, AI is in all it's being applied in all technology. So how are you considering AI being a part of, what you're looking at as part of sustainability?
Well, I think that probably the most logical place AI could play a role in adding value is in evaluating risks related to climate change over time. That has yet to be incorporated into our activities to date. So it's something to think about, and we'll see what we can come up with for our next update for you.
All great answers. Yeah, I suggest to President Milbar and our ED to maybe as future agenda items, how we can take a deeper dive into that. It'd be interesting just to learn as we move forward. And thank you. Really appreciate it.
That could affect many things in addition to sustainability in particular.
A comment.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
When we look at I see the term 100-year flood. The CEQA approved for this project calls for a 10.2-foot sea level rise approaching the 200-year level mark. You apply that to the Delta and you have an entirely different ecosystem. I encourage you to match the terminology of our CEQA for timescales and impact.
Director Weed, if I may, I'll just jump in here on this topic. So there's a couple of different things we're talking about. It's a 100-year life expectancy for the facility. That's the design life that we're designing for. So it's a 100-year duration facility. That's our anticipated lifespan. We are designing the projects to perform under hydraulic conditions associated with a 200-year flood event. So I realize there's a lot of different sort of numbers being through. So it's a 200-year return period flood event with the conditions downstream that you're describing. But those are the hydraulic conditions that the facilities are designed for. The 100-year that's referenced is the design life of the project facilities.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, sure.
And that's new to me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic?
Yeah, President Milbar.
Go ahead. And then go ahead.
Thank you, President. This is a really good presentation. I appreciate the topic. I guess I have a question. You've probably answered some of it, or you have it embedded in here. But these things tend to have a pretty complicated relationship with cost and kind of what you get as return and timelines of that. I'm curious if you have plans to look at what it would take to move us from year to year from a kind of upfront cost perspective, and what our return would be in terms of benefit to the environmental or downstream costs. Something like in a 100-year operational facility means we'll have lower costs for rehabilitation down the road. But I'm just curious if you're planning to evaluate that program.
And as far as the cost question is concerned, are you referring to anything that is added or done above and beyond the as-is designation in the diagram? Okay, yeah. So great question. We think about it all the time. So as part of the support towards deciding whether or not to pursue a full-fledged Envision certification, or whether or not to tackle some of the conservative or low-hanging fruit opportunities, or the more stretch ones that we've identified, there will be a cost conversation involved. We want to be able to provide context around the life cycle value of these activities so that the program can make informed decisions.
Let me make one quick follow-up. The tolling date for the 100 years would be from the operational start of the project, which I would think would be 2045 or later. Thank you.
So the 100-year life expectancy for the project would start at the day one of operations, 2045 to 2145. Right. Sure.
Any other comments? Any public comments? Ms. Rodriguez?
President Milbar confirming we do not have any requests here in the room or online.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your extensive explanation, and that's why there were so many questions. We'll go on.
Thank you very much. We all appreciate the interest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 7D. We actually have 4 contracts we're going to address one at a time. The first one is the 6th Amendment to the Jacobs Agreement. And Graham, can you explain that one?
Yes, President Millibar, and I'm actually going to start with a presentation that focuses on one aspect of the amendments. So this would be applicable to items 7D and 7E. These are the not to exceed amount amendment requests for the Jacobs Engineering contract and the Parsons Transportation Group contract. And then we've got Adrian Brown, our procurement, our chief contracting officer here to talk through the other amendments. There's several more administrative amendments that are included in these contracts. But for the first 2, 7D and 7E, a big part of them is the capacity increases. And so I want to start us out with a presentation that covers that for the 2 contracts, and then I'll turn it over to Adrian to walk through each contract individually with the additional terms so that the board can act on each contract individually. So
Sounds good.
go ahead. Thank you. Claudia, go ahead to the next. So just a little bit of background. So Jacobs Engineering provides our engineering design management services. So this team has provided all of the conceptual engineering and would transition to design management as the project transitions into the delivery phase, again, pending approval from the PWAs. The original contract was awarded back in 2019 for California Water Fix. So this was the big ramp up for the delivery phase. The initial capacity of 93 million and an initial 5-year term. So those were the starting points of that contract. It was repurposed for the in-house design team when Governor Newsom's administration took over. A single tunnel was requested, and the department opted to rescind the environmental document and restart the process with a single tunnel objective. This team was repurposed to provide all of the in-house engineering associated with the development of the project concepts. The contract was revised back in May of 2023 to add another 5-year term. So it's now valid through June of 2029. But because of the uncertainty at that time regarding next phase funding, the board will recall, we've been working under the existing funding that was approved for planning and permitting. I think at that time, back in May 2023, we were starting to gear up for conversations around next phase funding. But here, as we sit here now, that funding has been authorized. All of the PWAs have all voted independently to continue on at their existing participation level. And so now we're here to really reconcile the contract capacity with the scope of work that we see ahead of us through 2029. So for the Parsons team, they provide our program management, associated design and construction program management support services. So this is all of our, this is where we have all of our administration, IT, quality, sustainability, procurement, program controls, all within the program support contract. This contract also awarded in 2019, maximum capacity of 40 million, initial 5-year term. Similarly extended in May of 23 to extend the term through 2029. Based on uncertainty, the capacity was not increased at that time. Next slide, please. So you're familiar now with this slide. So just to kind of put a bit of a finer point on it, the current contract duration through middle of 2029 would cover this transition from permit support into the delivery phase. We would be pretty deep into the design phase on several of the project facilities and approaching a start of construction phase in mid 2029. So these are backbone contracts for the organization that are really going to be necessary to carry us forward through this next phase. And you can probably anticipate where I'm going here. We do expect a pretty significant ramp up in terms of what we expect in terms of expenditures. Next slide. So just a couple of key points here. First of all, the contract capacity does not guarantee the work. The DCA currently executes vendor task orders on an annual basis with a defined scope and budget. So that's actually what we manage to. We need the capacity in the master agreements to allow us to issue those task orders, but they definitely do not obligate expenditure to that level. The task orders that we develop combine to form the fiscal year budget for the most part. And so that's the subject of the next meeting we have here with the Finance Committee. The DCA Board of Directors approves the budget annually, generally at the June board meeting. So the task orders are developed internally. According to as required by the JEPA, we share those drafts and work with Delta Conveyance Office of DWR prior to board approval. So we have both DWR input as well as the DCA board that ultimately decides to adopt a budget for the fiscal year. Another key concept is that so at the end of the year, any remaining budgets that have been issued in task orders do not roll over. They return back to the DCA. We treat each fiscal year as its own experience. We stand it up at the beginning of the year with a new task order, new scope, new budget. By the end of the year, we shut it all down, kind of reconcile where we are. If there's anything that needs to be rolled over to the next task order, we do that specifically in the task orders. So it's very clear in the closeout process for 1 year and the opening and budget approval for the next. And any items that come through the process, through the fiscal year that are introduced, that are changes in scope, changes in budget, we have a rigorous change management process that allows for introduction of those changes, but that also, depending on the nature of the change, may require board approval, may require DWR approval. It just has different triggers, and those are generally all laid out within the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement and the JPA. Next slide. So the contract capacity analysis, we use two approaches. The first really informed by the actual expenditures looking backwards, the staffing levels that we have associated with those expenditures, and then the growth forecasted in future years associated with the work plan that I shared earlier in this board meeting and is summarized in that high-level schedule. The second approach was to actually take the 2024 cost estimate, which included very detailed estimates of labor soft costs that were defined by activities. We've now built those into a master schedule, and so we're able to take that cost estimating information, assign it to the different contract vehicles, and then truncate the analysis to June of 2029. So we can sort of separately and independently see what the cost would need to be in order to support the scope of work that we've identified and have included in the overall program plan. We did include in these considerations the contingency from the 2024 cost estimate, which was 15% on labor costs, soft costs. We also added to the analysis here, because it was not in the 2024 cost estimate, the 3% annual escalation. We want to make sure that the contract capacity includes the increased inflation and escalation costs that we'll experience between now and 2029. Next slide, please. So I'll walk through the analysis here first for the Jacobs contract. We've got, starting in the upper left-hand corner, a summary of actuals through April of 2025, 81.8 million spent on a $93 million total capacity. Forecasted for the remainder of the fiscal year, another 5.4 million. That would bring the total somewhere around 87.2. So we're within about 5 million of the overall capacity of that existing contract. Forecasting forward the next 4 fiscal years, ranging between 31.6 million up to 34.5. Adding in the 15% contingency, we end up with a sum additional need of 152.7 to get us all the way through that middle 2029 period. So adding 152.7 to 87.2 up above, we end up with about 240 million. It's my recommendation to amend the maximum contract capacity value to 245 million. Next slide, please. For the Parsons contract, similar analysis, 31.7. This is actually a month delayed, so it's through the end of February. Forecasted 3.2 million, so about 35 million spent on that contract for a $40 million contract. Again, that would leave about 5 million unspent. Looking at forecasting through the next 4 fiscal years, ranging from 10.3, ramping up to 18.8 as a maximum in that period. Adding those together, including the 15% contingency, 68.8 plus 34.9, we end up at 103.7, rounding up to 110. But again, just as a reminder, it does not obligate expenditure, it just provides the maximum capacity ceiling associated with the contracts. So that's the analysis we performed. That's the end of this presentation. I welcome any questions, I think, first on this item before I turn it over to Adrian to go through the other contract term amendments that we're asking for.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay. Thank you. So I will hand it over to Adrian.
Good afternoon, DCA Board. Building on Graham's presentation, what we like to say in procurement is if you have a car into the mechanic, since you're having it there, you might as well get the oil changed at the same time. So for administrative changes, we're making some to both documents. Some of them are very basic in nature. For example, we're actually changing the agreement administrator to Graham from Catherine Mellon. We're changing the key personnel for each of those 2 contracts. We recently had 2 folks come on. We're replacing Terry Kraus with Dan DeSimple for the Jacobs contract. And then for the Parsons contract, we're replacing Rob McCarthy with Clint Reimerman. On the Jacobs, we're also adjusting some other sections of the contract, including Exhibit C, the fee schedule, to deal with the multiplier and the fee schedule section. And then we made some other minor changes, like example to where notices go to, for example, given that we changed the names in the agreement. You can go to the next one.
Actually, we're going to do one at a time.
Yeah, we'd request the board consider these one at a time if that's acceptable.
Are you looking, President Malabar, are you looking for a motion to approve the increased requests from Sector Director for 6 million for Jacobs and 7 million for Parsons? So what you're looking for, or each one?
Yeah, Director Luna, staff would request separate motions for each of the amendments. So this, the amendment for this one would be to approve the 6th amendment of the Jacobs agreement.
Okay, President Malabar, if you're looking for a motion, I move that we approve the 6 million increase for the Jacobs.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call vote. Any discussion?
President Millibar, before we proceed with the vote, I think we need to make a clarification on the increase amount. So
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify, Director Luna, it's currently a $93 million value, maximum value, and we want to increase to 245. It is the 6th amendment for this contract, but it would be for that total not to exceed amount and the other amendments.
Yeah. Oh, I was doing the 6 million from 239 to 245. Is my math wrong?
Oh, the 239 was the estimate buildup, and then I've still got on that a tiny bit of buffer to go from 239.9 to 245.
So Graham, what is the motion? And then I'll move.
The motion would be to approve the 6th amendment as presented to the contract.
I so move.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a second?
Yeah, still seconding it.
Okay, roll call vote.
gladly. President Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Stromera,
Aye.
Alternate Director Plinsky,
Aye.
Director Naptawi,
Yes.
Director Weed. Okay, resolution approved for Jacobs.
Okay, so now we can move on to item 7E, the fourth amendment to the Parsons agreement. You want to explain that one, Graham?
We've covered the not to exceed amount item under the previous presentation, President Millibar. And Adrian's got a quick summary, I think, of the administrative changes, although Josh is trying to say something.
And I'll jump in for Adrian on this one, just because he's contracted through Parsons. So just to avoid even the appearance of a conflict. I think Adrian did mention some of the high level red line changes to this agreement. There is a red line in your packet. The one important change in this agreement between Jacobs and Parsons is Jacobs uses the multiplier. Parsons currently uses an all-in rate fee schedule. So you'll see some minor adjustments in Exhibit C, but the intent is for those exhibits to be consistent for future fiscal years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And the motion for this one would be to approve the Fourth Amendment to the Parsons agreement as presented.
Okay, any further questions on the detail? No questions? Then I would entertain a motion for the Fourth Amendment to the Parsons Transportation Group Agreement.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have
Second,
a
Mr. Chairman. Second, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, roll call vote.
President Millibar, prior to doing the vote, I just want to confirm that we have not received any public comment requests for the previous item or this current item.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I forgot you.
So proceeding with the vote, President Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Stromera,
Aye.
Alternate Director Plinsky,
Yes.
Director Amthawi,
Yes.
and Director Weed.
Aye.
All right, resolution passed. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to 7F, the third amendment to the AECOM agreement. Can we proceed with an explanation of that one?
Yes, President Millibar. So at this point, this is not a contract capacity amendment. This is dealing with the terms of the agreement. So it's more of those administrative terms, ensuring consistency among the contracts as we're working our way through these, addressing the other two. We're also bringing this contract forward with some red line changes, but without a not to exceed amendment.
Okay.
And in this case, the motion, President Millibar, would be to approve the third amendment to the AECOM Technical Services Agreement as described.
So moved.
Do we need any discussion on that? No questions? Okay,
Also-
well,
Also confirming we have not received public comment requests in the room or online.
So we have
okay,
Director
thank you.
Luna with a motion, and we need a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
President Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Stromera, Alternate Director Plinsky,
Aye.
Director Amthawi,
Yes.
and Director Weed. Great, thank you. Resolution approved.
Okay, and no public comment on that one, right?
Confirming no public comment requests.
Okay, we'll move on to 7G, First Amendment to the Best and Krieger Agreement. Are there any explanations on this one, or is it similar to the last one?
President Millibar, this includes a time-only extension. So beyond just terms that we might be cleaning up, it does not need a capacity increase, but we do need to extend the term of this contract. I'm asking the board to extend it another 5-year term through 2030.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? We need a motion to adopt resolution approving First Amendment to the Best and Krieger for general Professional Services.
So moved.
Okay, need a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any public comment on this one?
No public comment request received. President Millibar, if I can proceed with the vote.
Please, thank you.
President Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Stamera,
Aye.
Director Plinsky, or Alternate Director Plinsky,
Aye.
Director Anafdawi,
Yes.
and Director Weed.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Resolution approved.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8, reports. We will take all public comment on the staff reports and announcements now. Are there any public comments on the reports?
President Millibar confirming that we have not received public comment requests for the staff reports at this time, either online or in person.
Okay, item A. Our first report is the General Counsel.
Thanks, President Millibar. My written report is in the packet. I wanted to note 2 things that are not in the report. The first is just a thank you to the board for approving our contract amendment. I'm very excited for the opportunity to continue serving in this role going forward. The second is just a follow-up from our special meeting last week. So we continue to monitor the governor's trailer bill proposal related to fast-tracking the Delta Conveyance Project. And we'll continue to provide the board with information as it's released, including specific bill language. And as specific bills are released, we will be ready to send letters of support as appropriate and consistent with your action last week. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of Josh? I would want to make a positive comment on Josh's performance. Has been very excellent through all the times that we've met. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on now to the communications report.
President Millibar, we have Janet Barbieri here. You recall, I'm sure, that Janet is the communications manager for Department of Water Resources and really helping to lead the overall communications effort. So welcome, Janet.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me here. So it's very nice to see you all. It's been a while since I've been at this board. There are a couple things that I wanted to provide an overview on. As you all know, we're a well-oiled machine. There's a lot of communications involved in this project. And I'm going to provide a little bit of an update of some of the DCA specific activities and then just provide you a little bit of the other communications activities that are going on for the program. But starting with the presentation that we have here, we could just go to the next slide. DCA does continue to attend events. Graham mentioned a few of those before. I think they're repeated here. The American Waterworks Association conference in Anaheim, also the Southern California Water Conference luncheon in Temecula. We're continuing to look for opportunities to do that, and there are plenty of those. So there's tabling opportunities, you know, actually attending conferences, briefing opportunities, and that sort of thing. So appreciate the DCA's, you know, continued presence at those because it really is helpful as a communication tool. We also attended, and some of you did as well, the Aqua Conference. And so that was in Monterey and hosted a project briefing and also participated in the exhibition hall. Again, a really, really good opportunity to provide information, just answer questions. And so I'm lucky to continue to attend that conference. There are some new fact sheets. Everyone, I think, is aware that all of your member agencies have been asked to provide background information to have specific fact sheets about some, you know, details for each agency, service area and the number of people served and sort of reliance on the State Water Project. And so there are a couple of new ones. The Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency is up, Alameda Water District fact sheet is up, and there are a couple more that are very near to completion. And so those will be going up as well soon. There is a new fact sheet that just went up recently on cost containment. I'm really excited about this one because there's a lot of information there and there's a really good story to tell in terms of the DCA's unique position and ability to, engage in cost containment and, help control project costs. And so that fact sheet is now available for on the website. And I'm also particularly interested in it because I think that there's a lot of interest, especially from member agencies and your constituents about that question. And so I'm excited that that fact sheet is now available for public review. Oops, I think other direction. There we go. And then as Josh mentioned, and you all are of course aware from your special meeting last week, there was the press release supporting the governor's proposal in the trailer bill language. And I just wanted to mention, if you didn't see it, that there is a press release that the governor's office put out a couple of days ago at referenced your action as well. So thank you again for taking that up so quickly last week. I believe that's the end of that. That's specific to DCA, but I did want to mention a few other things that are going on just to bring this to your awareness. Of course, with the trailer bill language, we are providing a lot of background information. There's press inquiries and committee meetings and that kind of thing. So we're providing, as much detail as we can as those questions come up. I wanted to also let you know that we do, if you're not already aware, we do update what we call the missed opportunities figure. So this is, a theoretical analysis showing if the Delta Conveyance Project were in place today, how much water could we have, moved, captured and moved with the system. And we're up to 952,000 acre feet this year. Remember last year was 941. Yeah, so very similar to last year. We are putting a new fact sheet out very soon that shows the last 4 years in total. Just tries to help tell that story a little bit better. I think that there's sometimes some misunderstanding about, what the system does and what this project could do. And so that's, helpful background information. I also wanted to bring to your attention for the change in point of diversion hearing process. This is at the State Water Resources Control Board. We're in the middle of that now. And from a communications perspective, we have been providing updates, sort of recaps every time a new panel goes and provides that piece of our testimony, so that those recaps are available on the website if you're interested in sort of seeing what has been presented in each one of those panels. And just lastly, wanted to say that we do have a progress report we do every year. It's long, running from 2019 until, through 2024. But I just wanted to remind you that that exists, and it is another way to just, as a refresher, like all of the things that the program has been doing since that time for everything, including DCA, environmental, communications. So that's all available as well. And then the very last thing is just going back to sort of events and conferences and briefings, a reminder that we do have a team that goes out into the Delta. They're specifically focused on environmental justice outreach, and they do tabling at events. So farmers markets, festivals, and they have a booth, they bring their informational materials, and I think we're probably up to maybe 60 or so events, and they have had the opportunity to, just tallying up all the numbers, it's probably 20,000 people that have attended those events. So it really is a good opportunity, and we're grateful to have them out there. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you for your report. That was good. And if there are no questions, we'll move on to item C, the DWR Environmental Manager Report.
President Millibar, Carrie Buckman usually provides that report as the Environmental Program Manager for DWR. She's unavailable today, but I really feel like we've covered the topics between Josh's legal update and Janet's communications update. But I'll check with Josh and see if there's anything he wants to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Director Luna and Mr. Bradner for providing their policy statements. So as part of the CPOD hearing, so on Monday, there were additional policy statements that were read and both Director Luna and Mr. Bradner provided them. So thank you for that.
And Director Nemeth, and Carla Nemeth also provided a policy statement. So yeah, definitely appreciate Director Luna and Director Nemeth.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? I guess not. Item D is for the directors. Any verbal reports? Not seeing any. Any future agenda items?
Just on the sustainable program, I think if, I'll leave it up to, based on the questions, what could be the deeper dive into it. It seems like an interesting topic for us. It's educational for me. So selfishly, I'd love to learn more.
Yes, noted, point taken. I think we will bring something back to the board and engage directors a lot sooner than 2 years from now. That was a pretty big hiatus from the last time we had the team in here, but you can tell they've been up to a lot, really trying to get their arms around this program. The scale of it does present some interesting challenges from really any perspective in terms of understanding impacts and opportunities. I think the next year is going to be a very important year for the program and for the sustainability team. And so I'd be happy to come back with more frequent updates and keep the board informed in terms of how we're progressing.
Yeah, and as clarification, future agenda items, not at the next meeting, but you gauge it as it's proper to also relay information with lots of stuff happening out there. So
I think the milestones are going to start coming in a little faster. And so, yes, absolutely, we will.
Janet, you were going to say something. I saw you reach for the microphone.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but just on the sustainability thing, there will also, my understanding, be a suite of materials to support that as well. And that's forthcoming.
Thank you for saying that.
And associated costs will be addressed?
That's correct, President Millibar. We absolutely will be including cost implications and considerations in that conversation. So this will be a well-rounded discussion in terms of how this topic moves forward on the program.
Okay, sounds good.
I have one more for consideration, sorry, and this is for Josh. And we kind of broached this maybe like a year and a half ago, and it came about today. So this conversation around whether alternates can participate in closed sessions with the directors. And I last time we talked about it, so just for clarity in the public, is that, during closed session, currently only the director who is serving as a prime can participate. And I just think it's such a missed opportunity to have alternates be present and be educated about what's happening so that they can truly serve as alternates. And so I didn't hear back when I brought this up, I didn't hear a legal aspect. So can you talk about, or actually don't talk about it. Can that be a future agenda item?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Director Luna.
All right. No other comments. We're adjourned.
President Millibar, I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we do have participation from alternate director Mark Gilkey here in the room and alternate director Palmer online.
Has shown up there as well.
And I do
Accepted.
see that she has her hand raised.
Was
You
raised.
said some has a
Yeah.
comment? Oh,
Yeah, sorry, it was a
Okay.
comment. I know you've already adjourned, but I just wanted to thank Director Luna for bringing that point up. That's been a sore point with me for a long time.
thank you for your comment, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank
We're
you.
we're
Officially
adjourned
adjourned.
in